origins of, in the syllabus we say origins of power, but it's not really power. Gifts that a man or a woman receives, and they use these gifts to work with people's needs. They help people in many different ways, physically or lifestyle. And they're known as medicine men or medicine woman. They have several names in that role. One name that I'll just kind of list them: Pejuta Wichasha, medicine man. When you literally translates it, it's Pejuta Wichasha. Pejuta is medicine. And I think this is a recent description of a medicine man. But to me, this will probably fit more for an herbalist, somebody that works with herbs, plants. People are gifted. Certain people are gifted to do that. One of my daughters has that gift, and she makes cough syrup, lotions, things like that. And I kind of think this term will probably fit them more than a medicine man or a healer. The other one is Wakan Gleska. And this just means interpreter or translator of whatever is considered Wakan. Okay. This could mean that they translate a message from an eagle, the coyote, whatever spiritual friend they have. They talk to them and they translate their message. So they become the translator. And sometimes they said, we're not medicine men, we are just Gleska. We are translators. Sometimes they're called Wakan Wichasha. A man that works with spirits that are Wakan, same as this. It's just another term, another way of defining who they are. Wakan Wichasha, it's a man that works with things that are considered Wakan. Same as translator of Wakan. It's the same kind of thing, only a different description. But today, most of them will just tell you, I'm just an Gleska. Okay? I'm just a translator. Long time ago, the French people, French trappers, came into the Great Lakes area in Minnesota and Wisconsin, and they mixed with the people there, the Ojibwa, the Cree, the Menominee, eventually the Dakota division, and they become friends with the family. And those Frenchmen, they didn't try and change the people. They adopted the ways of the tribe. So they spoke Ojibwa, they spoke Lakota, Dakota, and they live like us, because that's how they survive, and that's how they stay alive, and to trap. Their main goal is to trap beaver, anything they can get hides from. So they mix with us. When the movement came, Western movement started. Missionaries came, military came, commissioners. When they talked to our people, they couldn't understand the language. So these Frenchmen were the first Gleska. They were the first translators. But they mistranslated a lot of things. They're not that fluent in the language, so they misinterpret a lot of different things. But they became the Gleska. And then when they marry into the tribe, they have children. So they call them Gleska Chinchaki, the children of the translators. So that's how they described them, children of the translators. And in 1935, Indian reorganization came, and they set a blood quantum to be Indian. You have to be 1/4 or more. So they call these offsprings Gleska Chinchaki, and then eventually they just call him Gleska. So from 1935 to today, Gleska became mixed blood. Okay, half-breed. It doesn't mean that, but that's what it turned out to be because of who they were talking to. So today, when the medicine men call themselves Gleska, people really look at them. Are you a mixed blood or what? It's just funny because, when you go to a ceremony, there's a lot of humor. People tell stories, and they laugh, tell jokes. And one time I went to a ceremony, and the Gleska is a cousin of mine. and he was in the center. So when the ceremony starts, usually people will talk to the spirits. And they will, first thing they'll ask is, we want you to give a good health to the Gleska in the center, so that he will be here when we need him. We want him to be healthy. So they always pray for the Gleska, using the word Gleska. They did that night, Everybody prayed to the Gleska, and then came to one of his brothers-in-laws. And his brother-in-law's turn was turned to pray. And he said, Tukashila, he said, this half-breed out in the center, he said. The medicine man said, why? Yeah, he said, I'm not a half-breed, he said. But, it's humor, people laugh. But throughout history, we have them. They became healers in many ways. They themselves don't heal, but their spirit friends heal. And this took place in the 50s and 60s. I grew up in 1940s as a boy. And I had a grandmother who was a medicine woman. And there was an old man who lived up in Hedog area. Those two did doctoring. My grandmother, she'll work in a lighted room like this. And my sister was there one time. She described it. She said she started the ceremony, and she smudged the room, put the offerings out, and said, I'm going to sing my song, and if that bird comes in, that means it's going to work. And the person she was doctoring was my oldest brother. He had a sunstroke. And he had such bad headaches, it almost drove him crazy. I mean, those headaches were just very intense. And he couldn't take it anymore, so my mother took him to our grandma. So she made him lay down, face down on the floor. And next to his head, she had a cloth, white cloth. And she said, if that bird comes in, it's going to work. And she started to sing. And here, you could hear this bird flying around in the room. But you can't see it. But you could hear how it sounds when a bird flies. It's doing that. And then he said pretty soon, that bird was chirping out of her mouth. It was the bluebird. Bluebird singing, chirping. She went over to my brother, back of his head. She leaned down and sucked all that junk out of his head and spit it on this white cloth. So there's blood clots, pus, but she sucked it all out. Similar to surgery, removing a tumor, similar to that. She sucked it out with her mouth. My brother died when he was 63 He never once had a headache in his life. But that's how my sister saw it. She was there. And my brother, the way he described it was, he said he was laying there and he said, I could hear that bird flying around in a room. And pretty soon he said, I heard that bird singing. And he said that bird landed on my neck. It was a bird that landed. And then he said, this human mouth came and started sucking out of my head. And that was my grandma. So at that time, these healers, whatever spirit friend they have, will come into their body. And they will work through them. This other man worked on my other brother. He said he took a round stone about the size of a softball. He said that round stone was red hot. He said he took it in his hand, rolled it around, went to the place where the disease was, put his hand on her, and he said he drew it out with that heat. Cleaned his hand, rubbed it, drew it out. Again, the spirit went into his body to make him do that. Okay. So I remember that kind of healing that took place, where the healers actually, the medicine men actually heal, do the healing. They were gone for a while. When they came back, they became Gleska. They became interpreters. I'm going to share some stories with you that they shared in this class on how they befriended or how they become friends with certain relatives. Because we look at everything as a relative. When that bluebird came to my grandma, that bluebird came to her as a relative. Yeah. The spirits that come, they come as relatives to work with them. This one man, he was 13 years old. And it was July. He said it was kind of warm out, hot out. He was playing outside, and they lived west of Spring Creek. And he said he was playing out there. Then he said they have some car bodies. So he was kind of tired, so he laid down the back seat of one of the cars and went to sleep. When he was sleeping, this man came to him in a dream and told him what he must do. So when he got up, it was just clear, their visit. He remembered everything. So he ran back to the house. His mom and dad were in there, so he was all excited. He said, I just had this dream. And he told him what this man said. He said, you know, he said, they really got after me. They really scolded him. He said, don't ever talk about those things. Don't ever do that. He said, they scared me so bad, I didn't know what to do. For several nights, that man kept coming in his dream. You must do this. You must do this. But he said, I was scared of my parents. I didn't know what to do. Eventually, he quit coming. And he said, I was quite relieved that he didn't come. This was when he was 13 years old. When he was 18 years old, that same man came back with exactly the same message. He said, by then I was running around with my peers. We're partying, we have girlfriends. I didn't have the courage to tell anybody because I know if I did, they'll say I'm crazy, they'll make fun of me, and they'll laugh at me. So I didn't have the courage. So he said he never said anything. And this man kept coming back, and again, eventually, he was gone. So he was quite relieved. He said, maybe this time he'll leave me alone. It's kind of interesting because when he was 33 years old, same man came back. Same message. And he said, by then, I knew I must do something. He said, I was lucky because he said, I had one uncle who I know goes to ceremonies, who I know practice traditional ceremonies. So he said he went to him and told him what was happening. And he said, he looked at him for a long time and he said, yes, I wish you could have come sooner. But he said, maybe it's not late. Let's go see this medicine man. So they went to this older man, medicine man. He said they walked in a house. The medicine man looked at him and he said, we've been waiting for you. You know? He knew he was supposed to come. But he couldn't tell him. He has to make that decision himself to come. So he said, we've been waiting for you. And he helped him. He put him on a hill, and that man in his dream came and gave him instructions of what he must do to have the ceremony. But he said it was a real struggle. I was scared. I didn't know if this is real. He said I couldn't talk to the parents because they would condemn me, you know. Luckily, he had an uncle who listened. But he was one of the most humble medicine men I've ever known. I worked with him and he helped me start a Sundance. He told me to dance. He said, even if it's just you, I'll help you start. And that's how I started that Sunday. But I've known him all my life. Very humble man, really. He doesn't talk much. He's just friendly with everybody, and everybody that meets him really likes him. You know, he doesn't ask for things. He's not a very showy guy, very humble man. And people really liked that way he was. The other one that told his story here was all his life. He said, ever since I could remember, somebody's always here. Or right here. And sometimes you turn around, but there's nobody. But he always feels a presence. That somebody's just behind him, Like from the corner of his eye, look like there's somebody there. He'll look, but there's nobody. He said most of his life it's like that. And one night, he lived out in the country. One night at midnight, he had an outside bathroom. And he said it was a clear night. He said the moon was out, it's just bright. He said he went to the bathroom and he was coming back. And just as he came to the corner of his house, he could see on both sides, at the corner of his eyes, he could see these two people just move right next to him, like this. And when they came close to him, he said, I was out. When he came to, he was laying in the middle of a cemetery. He said he could hear people crying, some screaming, but he said he was laying there. He said, I was so scared, I didn't even move. He said, I just laid there. And right in the morning, just as daybreak, sky was blue out east. Then he went out, and just that quick he was up, and he was standing in the corner by his house, where the last time he remembered he was standing. When he went to a medicine man, he said he was selected to be a helper to the people. He said, you're going to work with medicine men who passed away many, many years ago. I used to go to his ceremonies. When his spirit friends come in, he'll introduce them. They're medicine men from 5, 6 generations ago who came to help him find the medicine they need to heal somebody. So he worked with the spirits of the deceased medicine men. So that's another story that this man told. And the other one was this man, he said he likes to hunt. He said, every time I go after a deer, I would get one. He said, I always get my deer. One evening he shot a deer, he gutted it and hid it. He said that night when it was dark, You know, he was poaching, so, you know, when it was dark, he went out there to get that deer. He said he picked up that deer, and he said he put it in the trunk like that. And just as he put it in the trunk, with a clear voice, the deer said, "We want to be your friend, but you keep killing us." Just clear. He said, "I just froze. I don't know how long I stood there like that." But he said, "I was shocked." You know. He never ate a deer after that, you know. But one of his spirit friends was a deer. He was in bed. It was in June. He said about 4:30 in the morning, you know, in the summertime in June, it's already daylight, you know. He said, somebody came in the room. And he said, I know I locked the door. But whoever it was a big man, because the footsteps were really heavy footsteps coming across the living room. Came to the doorway of his bedroom, and he said there was nobody, but stopped and he introduced himself. I'm so-and-so, and I've come to give you a message. So he looked again, and here in the doorway stood this man, but he was only about this tall. A full-grown man. He was only about this tall. He said he came over to his bed, introduced himself, and told him that he represents the Spider Nation. He said, we want to work with you. But before we do, you must fast on a hill for 4 days and 4 nights, and we will give you instructions. He said, do it soon. He left. He said, I used to drink at the time. And I was laying there thinking, am I having DTs? You know, because he saw this little man. You know. He said, why me? He ignored it. And he came back a few times. Finally, he had to do it. So he went to a medicine man. And again, that medicine man looked at him and said, we've been waiting for you. He put him on a hill 4 days and 4 nights, and every night a different man come representing a different nation. The first night it was the coyote. Second night it was the deer. The third day it was the eagle. And the last day was the hail cow. But every day a different person comes, instructing him of what to have on his altar. He said, you have these on your altar, sing these songs, and we'll come. But make sure you have these offerings for us. So many tobacco ties for the deer, so many tobacco ties for the spider, the eagle. They all have different sets. So that's why when you go to a ceremony, you will see different colors of tobacco ties. They go to different spirits. Keep in mind that these spirits come from the world of what we call animals. In our language, we don't have a word for animal in our language. Animal means a second-class citizen that doesn't have a mind. That's what animal means. In our language, in our way of life and belief, every creation has a spirit. We call them Oyate, nation. Shugumanutu Oyate, the wolf nation. Hechaka Oyate, the elk nation. Pste Oyate, or Tchatchaka Oyate, the buffalo nation. We name them and we call them nations because they have language. They have a way of life. They taught us. They know the earth better than we do. It's a very simple thing, but sometimes I, especially this time of the year, sometimes my horses will buck, and they'll be bucking and running and playing and bucking. And they always say, well, you're going to get some cold weather. And sure enough, it gets cold, sometimes we get snow. But their behavior kind of gives us a warning that something is coming. So to us, there's no such thing as animal. It's a relative. When you go to a ceremony, when that medicine man's spirits come in, he will introduce them. He will tell you who these spirits are. So you know who's there, who you're working with. And that it's a relative that come to help. These medicine men they didn't seek that role. They didn't know they were going to be one. One old timer told me, he said, there are 7 spirits. He didn't say what the spirits were, but he said there are 7 that will select an individual. Once that individual is selected, just like these visitors that came to this medicine man, somebody will come to that person and say, you have been selected. We've come to tell you, and we will work with you. So you might be just laying there or sleeping or wide awake, and all of a sudden a man will come to you and say, you've been selected. and I represent the Elk Nation, and we'll work with you. But before we do that, you must fast on a hill 4 days and 4 nights, and we will give you instructions. The medicine men, the way they talk, they're the only ones that have to fast 4 days and 4 nights that first year when they received their instructions. I work with quite a few of them, and every year in the fall they go up for 1 night to fast and to give thanks. But just that first time they do 4 days and 4 nights. After that they go up maybe 1 night just to reconnect and relax. So once they're selected, they won't let them go. One of them told me he fasted 4 summers, 4 days and 4 nights, for 4 summers. He danced 4 days, Sundays, begging and crying to be let go. After the 4 years, I told him no. The only way to let you go is you have to give up whatever is closest to your heart. You have to give that up. So when it comes to that, that's when these men give in to that calling. So the ones that come through that process are very humble medicine men. They're not showy. They know what they have. They're very respectful. They're very honorable persons. There are some guys out there that purchase a spirit. And they become medicine men. Sometimes those guys become very greedy. They take advantage of people and they get out of hand. They want that attention. And they become very showy. So you can purchase a spirit. Are there any questions? Do you have any questions? And I think the women probably received their gifts the same way. They come to them. Approach them. I used to have an old timer who used to come to my classes when I was teaching high school, St. Francis. And he used to talk about these things. And one time he said, never ask or seek to be a medicine man. And he sat there for a while and said, because I did. He said for 10 years straight, every summer, he fasted 4 days and 4 nights asking for a gift to be a medicine man. He said on the 11th year, he was up there and this man came to him and said, you are very persistent. You just don't give up. He said, you weren't meant to be a medicine man. You weren't meant to be one. But we watched you every summer. And you did everything properly with respect and honor to us. He said, we appreciate that. We will give you 2 things, just 2. Don't go beyond that. You can only do these 2 things. So 22 years later, I regret many times that I seek that because people won't leave him alone. You know, he never had any rest. He said it's a hard life. So he said, never seek a gift. If you're meant to be one, they'll come to you. They'll let you know. And that's better. These things, these are not just stories. These incidences are real. We still have that connection to that spirit world today. We still do. We still have relatives who would help us stay healthy if we follow their directions. I give you a little protocol of how to approach a medicine man, how to work with them. You know, you respect them, you honor them, and their spirit friends will help you. The medicine man himself cannot do it. It's his spirit friends that are going to work with you. So again, they just call themselves Gleska, interpreters, translators, and it's a hard life, very hard life.